Good morning. Good morning. It is 2:45 a.m. I am on my way to the gym right now. I kind of sometimes start my segment off with a thought, just to kind of give you an idea about where this comes from. It's not scripted. Even though people say you should do PowerPoints, you got to forgive me. I'm not formally educated like that. So where they see that there's actually a method to how you deliver, I believe that the person who created the method was the original author of the way it should be done, and therefore everybody else is copying that. So my method of doing things may be just something that's going to set another way of doing it. Long story short, my process for just coming out with these things are inspired by my thoughts. And I'm walking through the house this morning, and I'm not necessarily thinking about what I'm going to say this morning, because I never do that. I started thinking about Silas. Silas is a 6-year-old boy, and if I get what grade he's in messed up every once in a while, forgive me. But Silas is in the 1st grade or 2nd grade. And Silas has never missed a day of school. Silas has been sick. And when I say how sick, I say you got to be damn near on your deathbed. But Silas goes to school. And after Silas gets out of school, after one of these days where he's not feeling the best, I say, how was your day? My day was good. How do you feel? I feel great. Excellent. If you look at me, I'm here every day. I show up every day. If you look at Malachi, he's here every day. He shows up every day. If you look at Ricky, she's here every day. She shows up every day. Sanaya, she's only 2. But she's the happiest yelling 2-year-old I've ever met in my life. Silas is not made any different than you. I am not made any different than you. Malachi's not made any different. Ricky, Sanaya, none of us are made any different than anybody else. None of us are more gifted. None of us are more talented. None of us have stronger immune system. There's nothing about me that is created different than anybody else on the face of this earth. But yet sickness, absence, and things like that don't typically come into our home. And I'll tell you why. It's because we don't embrace it. I remember going to the doctor one time, and she said, "You're sick." I said, "What do you mean I'm sick?" She says, "You're sick. Like, I can tell just by looking in your ear and your nose that you're sick. You have a cold." I say, "Doctor, I feel completely fine. I'm just here for a checkup." She says, "I know that, and your body is doing really well." She said, "But you have every symptom of somebody who is sick." See, because I choose on whether or not, you might be thinking, you choose. No. Colds overwhelm you. Colds overcome you. Being absent from school is something that's necessary if you don't feel well. Why? I asked my child every time he said he didn't feel well and he still went to school afterwards how he felt. He felt fine. Because he pushed through. My uncle just recently passed away, and man, I swear he was just like a father to me, but I knew how much pain he was in. And knowing how much pain he was in makes his passing a little more comfortable, a little more believable. But the morning I got the call that he was in the hospital, it was on a Sunday morning, I was with the rest of the family up at the hospital. I rushed up there. When I got there, I was happy to see everybody else that showed up, and I was like, wow, great support. But it fell on a Sunday. This was about 6:45 in the morning. Service starts at 9:30. I went to the hospital. We all prayed as a family. And I left. They said, where are you going? I said, I'm going to church. I've done all I can do here. I'm not a doctor. And I refuse to let anything get in the way of what was already planned or destined. Not even death. Well, what about grieving? Well, you can grieve however you want. I choose to grieve in church. You can do what you want. You can even get sidetracked. You could even call out of work because you got a tummy ache. You can give into whatever it is that you want to give into, but I'm just standing here as a living testimony saying that you don't have to. That's all I'm simply saying. Not that I'm made any better. Not that I am born with any greatness that you don't have inside of you. Am I great? Absolutely. But you should feel the same way about yourself. Am I uniquely created, one of a kind? None like me? Absolutely. You should see yourself in the same way. So are you. So I have to say that it comes down to how we perceive things. You may perceive a tummy ache as an excuse to keep your child out of school. I see it as an opportunity to push through. You may see death as an opportunity to spend every day grieving and crying. Power to you. I see death as an opportunity to give thanks to God, to recognize the goodness inside of death, to not be selfish about the loss, to not just think about what I've lost, but what that person who has passed away has given up or transitioned into. So when I'm thinking about he hasn't ever missed school, I have not showed up, let alone do I get sick. I don't get sick. I'll go ahead and speak that into the atmosphere now. To any spirit that's wishing to slow me down. Because whether you know it or not, you have more power than you think. And your ability to overcome short-term setbacks is stronger than you think. The problem is you just never unlocked it. You know, your cell phone or this camera. You know, if you don't get familiar with this camera, you have no idea that it shoots a 1080p, which is, what that means is the resolution on it is really good, right? It's really good. But have you ever seen 4K? 4K makes you feel like you're actually there. That everything you're looking at is so clear that I can almost be sitting there and you're staring at me with your own two eyes. That's how clear 4K is. But if you don't know the settings, if you don't know what it's capable of, if you've never tried it, then you have no idea what this actually can unleash and provide to you in terms of quality. And I simply choose to look at each situation as an opportunity to exploit how great God has created me. So my grandmother used to say, you say everything that's on your mind. She says, but not everybody is a pull themselves up by the bootstrap type of person. And at no point would I ever go against what my grandmother said. I think what she was trying to tell me in so many ways is be more of a leader through helping people versus criticizing or looking down on them as if, look what I'm doing, why can't you do this too? And being so hard. But I do see things like that. I do see that I can do it. I do see that I have a past. I do see that I've overcome it. I do see that I show up even when I don't want to. Like even church, I don't make my kids go to church. I don't sit there and say, if you ever spoke to one of my children and said, hey, what do you think about church? Well, honestly, I don't know what they would say. Let's be honest. But if they ask me, where are we going? If it's a Sunday or a Wednesday, hey, where are we going? Obviously, because they're trying to plan out their little schedules. I say, well, we're going to church. The most you might hear is, can we get something to eat? Or can I sit with you in big church instead of going into the kids section? Right? Because I lead by example. And I fight back the things that bother me. And I fight back the things that try to overcome me. Try to leave me stagnant and still. I overcome the urge to do what everybody else does and stand there at the hospital as if my standing there is going to help them when the doors to the church have already opened up and I can be in there praying over it. Right? That's perspective. That's a no quit mentality. That's a no surrender mentality. That's a no give up mentality. And that's a not I'm built different than you mentality. That's just simply, that's perspective. And when you start embodying that kind of perspective, you start finding the powers that are locked away in you, similar to the 4K that's in here versus the 1080p that gives you a better view of what you want to see. But until you start doing that, you are going to continue to be sick. You are going to continue to call in to work. You're going to continue to stand around the hospital as if you got a PhD and you're waiting on somebody to come and consult you about how they should perform the surgery. Because everything that you think in your mind limits or expands your reality. That's period.